Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Contender Luis Ortiz has been confirmed to return to the ring on November the 7th in Los Angeles. His opponent will be Alexander Flores. Also on the card, you have Frank Sanchez returning. He will be facing Brian Howard. Michael Polite-Coffie, he will also be on the card facing Joey Abell. So I'll get to the press release and then a few thoughts. But one thing that I don't want to do, because when it was mentioned maybe a month or so ago, the date of November 7, Luis Ortiz returning, and the opponent at that point was listed as Scott Alexander. I did a video and it was in line with some others I'd done about the same time, talking about these stay busies, these tune-ups. So I want to get away from that, to some degree, because it's getting a bit tiresome talking about this. But I will say up front, these are not great fights for either Frank Sanchez, but in particular Luis Ortiz, who is a contender over 40, and, it's a bit disappointing that it's not a better name. Alexander Flores, right now, not inside the top 100. And Brian Howard, he's a former cruiserweight who's also fought in 2018 at light heavyweight. Frank Sanchez Faure, hopefully he will be able to get better fights in the future. But I'll get to the press release and then some thoughts on these fights and how I think it will play out. And maybe some of that will be easy to sort of see, given how I've just sort of prefaced the two opponents and the level of their ability at this point. But in terms of the press release, so sports fans, and this is from Tom Brown, who was promoting this for PBC, sports fans love the power and drama of the heavyweight division, and this lineup on November 7 will provide both in droves. King Kong Ortiz has established himself as an upper echelon heavyweight, and he will look to work his way back to another title shot against the hungry and game Alexander Flores. With unbeaten heavyweights in Frank Sanchez and Michael Coffie in separate bouts on the undercard, this show is built for action from start to finish. Okay, Luis Ortiz, he is first up with his quote, "I can't wait to get back in the ring and put on a great performance for all of my fans. I've been training hard and I'm going to show why I'm still one of the most dangerous and avoided heavyweights around. Credit to Flores for stepping up to the challenge, but I'm planning to make a statement November 7 on Fox." His opponent, Alexander Flores, says, "When I got the call for this fight, I immediately said yes, and I was ready to go. I'm always in shape throughout the year, so now we're just sharpening the tools for November 7. Ortiz is coming off a big fight, and I'm preparing for the best Ortiz we've ever seen. I don't know if he's overlooking me. I just know I'm going to be ready to take advantage of a life-changing opportunity." And then we have Frank Sanchez Faure saying, "I look forward to my return so that I can again show my skills and make the case that I'm a future heavyweight champion. Brian Howard is a very dangerous opponent, but I'm even more dangerous. My trainer, Eddie Reynoso, is preparing me for a spectacular win. I'm a proud Cuban fighting in America in front of millions of people on Fox. It's a dream come true, but only half of the dream. The job will be complete once I become the heavyweight champion of the world." Howard, he says, "I'm really looking forward to this opportunity on Fox against Frank Sanchez Faure. I've been training very hard to be at my best for this fight. I know that I'm going to come to California and be victorious on November 7. And then you have Michael Polite-Coffie saying, "This is going to be a great fight against a really good opponent. This is the first step towards getting where I want to be. Abell is a very credible opponent, and a win will justify me being able to fight higher ranked contenders in the heavyweight division. I can't wait to go out and put on a great performance on November 7th. And just on Joey Abell, so he says, "I'm blessed to get such a great opportunity to fight on this card. It's been a tough year for everyone, but I'm looking forward to ending mine on a positive note. I've been training like never before. On November 7, I'll be ready for war." So if we start at the top of the bill, Luis Ortiz versus Alexander Flores. It is what it is. It is a stay busy fight. Alexander Flores, his career in terms of how it's panned out when he stepped up to opponents of note, Joseph Parker, Charles Martin, he has been stopped in under 5 rounds or so. Against Joseph Parker, he actually looked decent before he ended up getting stopped, but ultimately against Martin and Parker, he was stopped. So he really hasn't fought too much in recent years. It's been a little bit sort of sporadic. There were some sort of management or promotional issues a few years ago, but he fought Joseph Parker at the back end of 2018. As I said, he was stopped in 3 rounds, and Mario Heredia was his last opponent. That was a KO win back in 2019, July of that year. So now we have him against Luis Ortiz, who hasn't been in the ring since his knockout loss to Deontay Wilder at the end of 2019. So basically it's going to be almost a year since Luis Ortiz was in the ring. And when you consider that Luis Ortiz is currently 41, he'll be about 41 and a half at the time of the fight. You know, these absences from the ring, these big gaps, not great for him. And there was talk there by Tom Brown that he's working his way back to another title shot. I mean, I actually believe that's a remote possibility, another title shot. I just don't see how he's going to get it. One, they have the issue of getting him meaningful fights. And 2, you know, his age is starting to become a factor too. I mean, they can talk a big game and say, you know, how well he's still performing. But I do think at some point there is going to be a drop-off, and perhaps at some point he's either just going to retire or he'll get beaten unexpectedly. Is that this fight? I wouldn't think so. I think Luis Ortiz, from what we saw last time out, more than a year ago, he's still got enough sort of in the tank to beat a guy like Alexander Flores. And I know Flores' trainer probably will be coming onto this video, as he did for the Joseph Parker ones back in 2018. But I do think that Luis Ortiz does get the win here, probably stops Flores inside 6 rounds. In terms of a stay busy, it's not terrible, but we need to see Luis Ortiz in better fights than this. I mean, he is 41 after all. He needs to be, you know, maximizing his time in the sport, and that means meaningful fights. And it begs the question, why can't they get him more meaningful fights? But we seem to be asking this question all over the board. Just the fights that we need to see, we're not seeing and haven't been seeing. And that's not a new thing, but the pandemic to some extent has exacerbated it a little bit. So hopefully after this, because there was talk about Andy Ruiz Jr., if Luis Ortiz goes in here, looks good, gets a stoppage, and people go, okay, Ortiz has still got it, we can see him in against Andy Ruiz Jr., or at least a meaningful fight. It would have been good to see him against one of the PBC stablemates. You know, you can think there's a number of guys in there: Charles Martin, Gerald Washington, Dominic Brazil, Adam Kovnatski, Chris Arreola. There's a whole bunch that maybe he could have been in against, but alas, it's not to be. So this is the fight. Ortiz to win by knockout is my prediction. In terms of Frank Sanchez, I was hoping it would be a little bit better than Brian Howard. And Brian Howard, he's only had 1 fight at heavyweight, previously a cruiserweight. He's also fought at light heavyweight. He was stopped by Umar Salamov back in 2018 at light heavyweight. The 1 fight at heavyweight was against Carlos Negron. And actually, that's not a bad win at all. Negron, about a top 60-ish guy, somewhere there or thereabout. And on the basis of that win at heavyweight against Negron and some of his former points from cruiserweight, etc., he's currently ranked on BoxRec at least at number 40. So hopefully we do see another impressive performance by Frank Sanchez, who earlier this year, when he did fight Joey DeVaco, he looked pretty good. He really outboxed DeVaco, won every round, and there was only 1 or 2 times where he was managed to get touched by DeVaco, but overall, very impressive performance. Good speed, good power, good right hand. There was a lot to like, and at about 15-0 at this point, Sanchez needs to be taking those incremental steps. So hopefully a good win here. We can see him against maybe some more top 30-ish type guys with a little bit more reputation than a Brian Howard, guys that can push him a bit more. But yeah, Frank Sanchez to win this one, possibly by knockout. And if I was to pick the method of stoppage, I'd be expecting a right hand, which Frank Sanchez really does have a good one. In terms of this third fight, Michael Polite-Coffie versus Joey Abell, actually, I don't mind this fight at all. Michael Polite-Coffie a little bit further back than Frank Sanchez. He's 10-0 at the moment, 7 knockouts. He was in a very fun fight against Luis Eduardo Pena. That was back in August. That was there was some knockdowns. It was fun. A lot of decent right hands traded, etc. Very sort of fun fight to watch. And he is a powerful guy, Michael Polite-Coffie, 34 years old, so he needs to get cracking now. He's got good power, good height at 6'5", good reach, 83-inch reach. So I think we're going to see a fight here which actually could be somewhat competitive. Joey Abell, even though the record is 35-10, He's not a mug by any stretch. He is actually a decent fighter, and he's sprung the odd upset in his career. I remember back in 2017, won a lot of upsets in that year, but he did knock out a guy called Krzysztof Zimnok, which was a minor upset, one of the sort of upsets of that year in the heavyweight division. So he can punch, but if he can't land some of these bombs, Michael Polite-Coffie, who does have pretty good skills, he moves decent for a big man, good power. We could be in for quite an entertaining fight. But similarly with Michael Polite-Coffie, if he's going anywhere in the division, he needs to actually win this fight, look good, win well. And as he says, he'll have the opportunity to fight guys maybe a little higher up the division. And it would have been better, and I hate to sort of go back to it, but I would have much preferred to have seen Luis Ortiz versus Frank Sanchez. Could have been a good crossroads fight. But, it is what it is. 2020 seems to be the year of either the mismatch or the stay busy due to some because of the pandemic, but also it is heavyweight boxing and boxing in general. It's just never get the fights that you want when you want. And for Luis Ortiz at 41.5 almost, hopefully we see him in a meaningful fight early in 2021. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.